President Obama said that Secretary of State Kerry will focus on Ukraine's economy while in Kiev. In the meantime, any action against Russia will be closely coordinated with the European Union. Shihab Rutansi, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Well, let's talk to Peter Zalmayev. He's the director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative. He joins us live from New York. Peter Zalmayev, there's been widespread condemnation of Russian action at the Security Council. We know that President Obama is under pressure to act strongly. But let me ask you, what real impact will sanctions have? I mean, are they purely symbolic?
I think at this stage we are speaking strictly about symbolic sanctions, and whether they be expulsion of Russia from membership in the G8 or boycotting the summit in Sochi, which is scheduled to take place in June. Those are highly symbolic, and I believe that Vladimir Putin went into this military campaign in the Crimea fully cognizant of the potential of these measures, and he is willing to take them. At the same time, the European Union leaders have ruled out any use of sanctions, including even considering expelling Russia from the G8. So unless the West acts in a unified front, these sanctions will not be effective.
And what are you making of these pro-Russian rallies that we're seeing in eastern Ukraine? I mean, people there must be worried about what they're seeing on the ground in Crimea.
People are extremely worried, but I think they're getting increasingly worried about seeing Russian tanks on the streets of their cities. There have been a few pro-Russia rallies in the cities of Donetsk and in Kharkov. My understanding is those are a few thousand strong, mostly rabble-rousers, young thugs who are on a rampage. I do not believe that the majority of population in those cities would welcome Russian tanks with flowers, with open arms. At the same time, what I see, and it is a very encouraging sign, is the population in Ukraine in both its western and its eastern parts coming together, seeking rapprochement. Ukrainians in western parts of Ukraine, predominantly Ukrainian-speaking parts of Ukraine, are now speaking Russian in solidarity with their compatriots in the east. And I think this is very encouraging, and I believe that this will send a signal to Moscow that the language issue, some of these other issues that have divided the country are an internal matter for the country, and they do not need the help of foreign tanks.
Yeah, it's an important point you make, Peter, about rapprochement. I mean, what about the fledgling government in Kiev? Can the government look to build unity and reach out to the eastern part of the country?
Ukraine does need a national unity government, and this is what, unfortunately, we do not have at this point. Ever since the disgraced former president Viktor Yanukovych was run out of the country, the government is pretty much mostly political operatives of the former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, who was recently released from prison. The acting Prime Minister of Ukraine, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, is the leader of a political party, while the acting president, Mr. Turchinov, is and has been her right-hand man. So unless there is equal representation in the parliament and in the government, we will not have that rapprochement. The government must consist of representatives from both sides of the spectrum.
Let me get a final thought from you, Peter, because we're running out of time. Is there still room for diplomacy to de-escalate the crisis? Will Russia step back from a full-scale invasion?
At this point, I do not think belligerent talk or any talk of militarization, short of any military decisions by NATO, which are not forthcoming, there must be talk of diplomacy. Both sides, the Russian side and the Western side, and the Ukrainians have to sit down and start talking and start establishing clear lines of communications. Putin will not be cowed into withdrawing troops from the Crimea. He's got the upper hand, and so we must seek diplomatic solutions to the crisis.
Peter Zalmayev, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera. Now, even without any international sanctions, Russia is already paying a price for its military intervention in Crimea. The Moscow stock market fell by 11.3% on Monday